The video will be available today in the afternoon. So, as I said, I need to make an effort to make you acquainted with digital technologies. This is extremely important. This is the reason why in my tutorials I only use open documents. So the information that you can get here and the links, they are all open. And also the pictures, they are open. And this is, the motivation is that I want that you get used to find the information on the web and to assess what can be taken and what cannot be taken. And so I will also take the opportunity to discuss with you about these issues. And so, if we have to start with this subject, what are the skills that I'm expected to convey to you? And I make reference, and I don't spend many words on that, but I suggest you to have a look. I make reference to the skills, the so-called 21st century skills. There is a Wikipedia page on that. Please, I suggest you to have a look, because I think it is extremely useful for you to try to better understand what are the skills that can make your career successful. It is extremely important. Keep in mind that during your studies and during your master's degree program in particular, you have flexibility in shaping your education. You have flexibility because you can choose subjects, but also you have some time available to get skills besides what it is suggested to you during the university subjects. So, for instance, one may wish to learn how to draw in AutoCAD or how to use programs like MATLAB or others. And this is basically your decision. You get suggestions from the teachers, but to shape the details of your CV, it's your decision. And the criteria that you should follow to shape the details of your CV is what you like, what is for you interesting. This is the first criteria. I always tell students, sometimes students come to me and say, what exam should I take, that one or the other one? And my first reply is, think about your interest, follow your heart. You know, there was a famous movie. So think about your interest and choose basing on your interest. And then the second criteria is try to figure out how your future will be and try to get the skills that allow you to give the best of yourself when you will have the opportunity to find a job and to shape your career. This is the reason why I said it's important that you speak well, because I am sure that this is one skill that you need. If you click here and read about the 21st century skills, you may agree or not agree with what is reported there, but I think it's a nice and interesting list. And here there is a figure. Basically, they identified 3 pillars, and you see there is learning and innovation, digital literacy, career and life. And if you look at learning and innovation, the list is critical thinking and problem solving. What does it mean? It means that you have to learn how to be critical and constructive. Problem solving means constructive. So when you listen from a teacher like me, try to evaluate critically what the teacher says. Don't think I have to learn what he says because I need to pass the exam with a good mark. This is wrong, believe to me. You have to think about, I try to listen to the teacher and critically, I evaluate what he says. And if you do like that, you will learn much better and you will pass the exam with a higher mark. So, the mark is a consequence, it's not your purpose, shouldn't be. Because, you know, the mark, okay, it's fine. When you get your degree, you have a mark, but it doesn't say anything when you go for an interview. It's much more important that you prove that you are able to evaluate critically and be constructive. Criticism alone is not useful at all, and people who are only critical usually are not appreciated in the society. But people that are critical and then are able to be constructive, they are much appreciated. Think about politics. If one only complains, we don't like it. If we get complaint, criticism, and then solution with positive attitude, then we appreciate it. Okay, creativity and innovation. You must be able to grasp innovation, to understand what's new, and you have always to have an interest in innovation. So if you see a textbook that is 50 years old, okay, it may be interesting to get the basis, but you should be aware that for sure there is something new. Very nice, the books of 50 years ago. I try to collect them, but we need to be aware that the knowledge is progressing fast. Communication, extremely important. So, to be able to talk. Communicating with people in general, with your colleagues, with the professor, it's extremely important. If you communicate well with the professor gets a good feeling, etc. The same for me. If I am able to communicate with you, you get a good feeling, and you know, I am appreciated. If I communicate badly, of course I'm not appreciated. And you have to think about it. You should not only be concerned about technical issues. These are important. We will talk about technical issues, plenty of them, but think also about these skills. Let's go to information literacy. It means that digital information literacy. Literacy means the body, to know the body of information. So you should be able to understand what you can get from the web, what the web cannot give to you, and the only way to learn is to make experience. The web is a huge opportunity. I don't agree. I have some colleagues, friends who say the web is a disaster because the information is not selected, there is a lot of wrong information. Yes, that's true, but there is a lot of information, and if we are able to distill the good information, there is also a lot of good information. Of course, we have to be aware that there is also the bad side, but it's a huge opportunity. And as I said, I was able to build the material for this course entirely by looking at the web. I didn't look at any book. And also for the other subjects, even those who deal with traditional topics, I'm trying to do that because I'm fully convinced that the web can give us everything that we need. But we need to learn how to use it. How to use Google or other search engines, how to find information, how to judge if the information is reliable. And I give you one suggestion, just one, as an example. Wikipedia, I already told you, for me, is the best. Let's say, it's very good. But in English. Because Wikipedia is built by people, like us. And it's free, it's open, everybody can contribute. So if you have a lot of people contributing, then the entry gets refined and gets, at the end, reliable. If you go to the native languages of Wikipedia, like Wikipedia in Italian, I found many, let's say, not mistakes, but inefficient entries, imprecise, because the community is smaller and smaller. So this is what you have to think. Like, I use a program, like Excel, it's unlikely that you find bugs, because it's used by millions of people. If you use a program that you found on the web that is built by one person and used by 10 people in the world, it means that it's very risky, because it may be affected by bugs. Okay, so information literacy, media literacy, and there are many kinds of information on the web. Wikipedia Commons, Wikimedia Commons, where you can find pictures, you can find diagrams, YouTube, a lot of information on YouTube, and then web pages, forums, social networks, also helping communication. I'm not saying that you must use social networks. You have to use them efficiently, because there are too many. If you cannot keep track of Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter, whatever. You need to know them and know how to deal with them. So you need to know when it's the case to use Facebook, when it's not, when it's the case to use Twitter, etc. Okay, and career and life, flexibility and adaptability. I don't make any comment because they are obvious, and also I invite you to refer to the web page. Initiative and self-direction, social and cross-cultural interaction, extremely important. You working alone, it was done in the past a lot, now it's unlikely that you succeed. Productivity and accountability. Accountability means that you can report your productivity. People can check it. It's extremely important. And then leadership and responsibility, finally. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to convey to you in this course, besides the technical issues. Of course, this is not material for the exam. I mean that I'm not asking these questions, but if you get these skills, you are more likely to get a very good mark in the exam, not only with me, with also my colleagues. So I suggest you to have a read. And that's it as a premise. This is just what I wanted you to know. As you can see, I'm looking for innovation myself, because I guess that this kind of approach to a subject is probably a bit unique. Probably it's your first experience with a teacher that starts in this way. Of course it is risky. You may like it or you may not. What I ask you kindly is, if you don't like it, please tell me. Okay? Because it's, I'm looking for innovation, but I need your feedback. Because otherwise it's just a lone effort which cannot be really efficient. Okay, now let me go to the first real lecture. Okay? And first of all, in the past, I put at the end of any web page a link to the next one. This is inefficient because when I pass to the next year, I need to change the order of the lectures, and then if I change the order, then everything becomes messy. So I remove the link, but I will put here the links to the videos. Okay? And because it makes it, I think I will do that. And I'm not sure, but because it's a little bit messy as well, but it makes your life easier. For going to the next lecture, you need to go back to the index and then next one. And this is what I'm doing. So let me go out, log out, because otherwise we have some space that is lost. Okay, so now let's start by talking about this course is about sustainability. So let me start my lecture talking about sustainability. And keep in mind, the first lecture, probably also the next one, so today and Monday, they are very descriptive. This is made by me on purpose, meaning that I want to start smoothly. Technical issues will come. When you see that I'm talking about descriptive issues, a question mark could come forward, like what I'm supposed to study here. Keep in mind that the question at the exam could be, what is sustainability? How do you define sustainability? And of course your reply should be as well descriptive. I will tell you what are the questions that are likely to be asked. This is the first example. What is sustainability? What is resilience? This can be asked, and of course be prepared to reply in a good way. Okay? A good way means that you need to be prepared, and so the moral of the story is that I suggest you not to underestimate reading these pages. I don't think they need really to be studied, but they need to be read, because if you think that these are just descriptive, obvious, and you don't pay attention when you read, then your reply is not efficient, because it becomes imprecise. Okay, so what is sustainability? This is a word that every one of us knows, and therefore I decided, and I think it is also extremely important, and therefore I decided to name this subject as sustainable design, which is a bit of a challenge, because as I told you yesterday, it's an evolving theme. In the past, this subject was called advanced hydrology and water resources management. I decided to change because I wanted to focus on sustainability. The problem is that sustainability, we all know more or less what it means, but we don't understand what it means from a technical point of view. So what does it mean to make a technical design? This is what we should learn, starting from the traditional design and then taking into place sustainability. Now let's define sustainability. It was defined first in ecology. And in ecology, I'm reading, it was defined as the property of biological systems to remain diverse and productive forever, indefinitely. So the reference was to biological systems, because it was defined in ecology. Diversity is extremely important. Why is that? Because we know that a diverse system is more robust, is more resilient. We will define resilience in a few minutes. If you think about a community, for instance, a living community, like society, like humans, we wouldn't survive if we were not diverse. If we were all engineers, we couldn't survive. If we were all men, we couldn't survive, or all women. We need to be diversified. So we need engineers, we need medical doctors, we need lawyers, we need social scientists, we need people that are manual workers, we need craftsmen, sorry. We need a diversity of, a plurality of people, diverse, because they can cope better with different needs. The same for nature. If you have a community of, think about fishes, they couldn't survive if only one type of fish was living in an environment. They need some, I don't know how to pronounce, algae or vegetables, let me say in a more clear manner. They need small fish who are able to eat the vegetables, and then they are eaten by bigger fishes. So they need a diversity. The same for a forest. A forest needs a diversity of trees. If you go into a forest, you don't see just one tree. You may see a dominant species, but then you see a diversity of communities. This is also important if you think of water resource system. What is the implication? For instance, a diversity of water sources. If you only take water from the river, then the river dries up, you are without any water. If you can take the water from the river and from groundwater, if groundwater for some reason gets polluted, you go to the river, and vice versa. So this is the meaning of diversity. So if we extend this definition to whatever system, this is possible, of course. You can remove biological and keep only system. And then you define sustainability as the property of a system to remain diverse and productive. Okay, that's fine. A sustainable environment, I made here the example of, for instance, a forest. A forest, if you think of the Amazons, and of course they are threatened by human actions, by reduction of the forested area, but if you think of the pristine part of the Amazons, this is a forest that survived for probably millennia, and survived to shocks, to climate change, because in the past we also had very significant climate changes. Think about glaciation, small glaciations, and the forest was able to survive. It means that it's sustainable. But if you think of the Earth system as a whole, it's not sustainable, even in natural conditions. This is why the concept of sustainability is criticized, because sometimes it's an ideal condition, and in the case of the Earth system, for sure it is. And you may wonder why. And I reply by saying, look at Mars. We are now almost sure, I would say sure, but there are still some scientists who question this theory. We are almost sure that water was millions, billions of years ago present on Mars in huge quantity. There were oceans, lakes, rivers, a lot of water. At the end of the story, water disappeared. And it disappeared for what reason? A possible reason is that Mars lost the magnetic screen. And if the magnetic screen is lost, it happens that the direct solar radiation hitting water may cause the I don't know if it is a good English word, the subdivision of the molecules of water in hydrogen plus oxygen. This is proved. We always say that water is conserved as a whole in our system. But actually there are conditions that are not verified in the Earth system that can cause the molecules of water to split in hydrogen plus oxygen. And one possible reason is the direct solar radiation if it's not captured by the magnetic screen. So one theory is that Mars once had the magnetic screen protecting from solar radiation. Solar radiation makes life almost impossible. It's not filtered by the magnetic screen and also the atmosphere. And why Mars could lose the magnetic screen? For the same reason that we know that the Earth will lose it. Meaning that the magnetic field on the Earth is given by the nucleus that is moving. And there is a lot of iron in the nucleus. And also the theory is that also in Mars there was a similar situation. So iron in the nucleus moving, originating the magnetic screen. But we know for sure that in billions of years the Earth will get colder and colder, the nucleus, for natural decrease of temperature, and the nucleus will stop moving. And after that, the magnetic screen of the Earth will disappear. And probably life on the Earth will disappear. So the Earth system as a whole is not indefinitely sustainable. So if you adopt this definition of sustainability forever, indefinitely, it is going to be criticized. But for our technical purposes, we can say that sustainability is to be ensured for future generations for a very long time. But keep in mind that sustainability is an utopia from an ideal point of view. Okay. Sustainability became an issue about at the mid of the 1900s, 1950, 1960. We understood that the economic boom and the massive social development that we had in most of the developed countries in around 1960, 1970 caused several problems. There was an increasing standard of life, which means more demands of resources, more demands for energy, more demands for water, more demands for food with respect to the past, and this progress was very fast. It is, we believe today, that the pace of progress that we are experiencing now is unprecedented, meaning that we are developing at a velocity that was never experienced before. This is probably true. I'm not really sure, but probably it's true. Probably in the past the changes were more gradual. And also, if you think at the Western countries, this is the longest period without any direct war on the land covered by the Western countries. So the last war in Europe and the United States taking place on our land was in 1945, so almost 100 years. And in the past this was not the case. And this is one of the reasons why our development is progressing so fast. But we realized for the first time, at about 1960, 1970, that water is a finite good. Water was assumed to be, prior than that, indefinitely available. Because, you know, it was, there was enough water for everything. After the economic development, water, rivers, and also some groundwater bodies became polluted and could not be used anymore, and therefore we realized that water is a finite good, that there is a problem with sustainability. And also the increasing demand for energy, the use of fossil fuels, the concern about climate change, so this made sustainability an issue. And it became an issue about 20 years ago, at the beginning of the 2000s. And in fact, as I wrote here, in 2005, the World Summit on Social Development identified sustainable development goals. I'm not going into the details. But they identified 3 pillars of sustainability, and this is interesting, and this may be a question for the exam. So what are the pillars of sustainability? And let me use a PowerPoint presentation because I think it is, I tried to, as I said yesterday, to distill, I did this work today, so I hope it's fine, to distill a PowerPoint presentation from here because otherwise it's difficult to... You see that I named the file lezione 1, so this is a mistake by me, okay? I just said that I have to... Okay, these are the pillars. Economic development, social development, environmental protection. So these are the pillars of sustainability, meaning that if you think about how to ensure sustainability, you have to reach the best compromise between the economic development, the social development, and the environmental protection. And there is a figure, two figures, which are interesting, that I took from the Wikipedia link that you find on my web pages. And this figure is interesting because you can realize that economy is nested into society, economy and society are nested into environment. So environment is the boundary condition that dictates the development of society, which in turn dictates the development of economy. It's interesting to look at the next diagram, which shows the intersection. So, what is sustainable? Sustainable means the intersection of economic needs, environmental protection, environmental needs, and social needs. And it's interesting also to see this interpretation of the various 2x2 intersections, or 1x1 intersections. So, the intersection between social needs and environmental needs gives rise to what is bearable, so what is doable. The intersection between social and economic needs is equitable actions, and equitable because it means that if you use economic resources by ensuring that social needs are met, basically the requirement for equitability is dictated by society. We assume that. And therefore, what is dictated by society and allowed by economic resources is, we can define it as equitable. This is an interpretation, of course, but I agree with this interpretation. And then the intersection between economic needs and environment identifies what is viable. So, not only what can be hypothetically done, but what can be practically done. And if you get the overall intersection, you get sustainability. Is the intersection between what is bearable, what is equitable, and what is viable. If it's not equitable, it cannot be sustainable, of course. So, to be able to discuss this diagram, it's, I suggest you it may be a question for the exam. Okay, so, what do we need to make sure that we achieve sustainability? Keep in mind that this is not a trivial question because we need to find a technical way to put sustainability into practice. So let's start by asking ourselves what is needed. And it is unanimously recognized that sustainability needs to be based on research, innovation, education, technological transfer, and policy making. It is a problem to put these things together, because to put together research, innovation with policy making at the end, through technological transfer, is a challenge. We will discuss about this repeatedly during this subject, because it involves the ability to communicate, it involves the ability to work interdisciplinary, which is extremely difficult. If you try to interact with a social scientist, with a political scientist, or let's say with, if you as an engineer try to interact with a politician, you realize how much it's difficult. Or if you try to interact with an administrator. And we will discuss this later, but I anticipate that this is even more difficult when the administration is democratic and when the decision-making process is participatory. Because if you allow everybody to participate in decision-making, you get a lot of opinions. It's difficult to reach a compromise. And also, you have to fight against the fake news. And fake news undermine the credibility of research, because, of course, when you present the result of your research, it happens to me every time, people question your objectivity. They say that you have a political interest, an economic interest, and this is, of course, something that is, this is something that in some cases, in most of the cases, is not true. So often these are fake accusations, but make the communication really difficult. Also, in democracy, you have often the problem that politicians are reluctant to take actions that are not popular. Unpopular actions, like increasing the taxes, politicians are reluctant. And you can see during the electoral campaign, everybody promises that taxation will be reduced, but there are no resources. So it's clear that you cannot reduce taxation. And it's also clear, if you have a little of knowledge of economics, it's also clear that there is something wrong in what they say. For instance, during the electoral campaign last week, I heard somebody saying wind energy and solar energy will be the future and will give work to everybody. This is completely unsupported. If we look at the statistics, renewable in terms of wind and solar cover about 0.8% of the total energy demand, and there is no way in the near future to exploit them to replace fossil fuels. There is no way in the near future, unless we discover new ways of getting energy, new ways of getting, for instance, nuclear energy. There is no way with the renewable to replace fossil fuels in the short term. It may be in 100 years. But when politicians say that in the next 5 years in Italy there will be investment on renewable and we will get a lot of working places for this, this is clearly unsupported. And this is the result of the fact that politicians need, in order to succeed, which is a legitimate wish, they need to take actions that are not unpopular, and they need to say things that are not unpopular. And this is a problem in the decision making, because from administrators what we need instead is they should have the courage to take unpopular decisions. But when this happens, then it turns out that the next election they pay the fee for that. And this is it's indeed a problem. There is a paradox that in a democratic system, it's more difficult to get decisions, it's more difficult to ensure sustainability. This, of course, doesn't mean that we need a dictatorial system, but I just would like to emphasize the problems in communication for a water resources manager. Okay, sustainability is strictly connected to the concept of sustainable development. Just read what is written on my web pages, and of course sustainable development is the set of strategies that allows us to develop societal development while maintaining sustainability. And sustainability is closely connected to the resilience of the related systems. This is another term that you have to learn. It is a kind of buzzword. Buzzword means like a fashionable term. If you don't know this English term, I learned it about 6 months ago, but it means like a fashionable term. And sustainability also, sometimes it's used as a buzzword. And resilience is another term with a technical meaning that you need to learn, even if it is very often used as a buzzword. What does it mean, resilience? Again, it was first defined in ecology as the capacity of an ecosystem to absorb disturbance and still retain its basic structure and viability. So you see, it's strictly connected to sustainability. A resilient system is more likely to be sustainable. What does it mean, a disturbance? Think about a water resource system like an aqueduct. A disturbance may be a huge drought, a severe drought. After a severe drought, during a severe drought, is the water resources system able to remain functional? Can it provide water anyway, or does it fail? And after the drought, the system does recover quickly to the original state or not? Think about society, think about what can be like an earthquake. So is the societal apparatus able to get back to the original system quickly, to the original condition quickly after the earthquake or not? Resilience is composed by many factors. With respect to an earthquake, it may mean that you have good buildings, but it may also be given by the ability of reconstruct very quickly, the ability of provide funding to reconstruct. So there are several components of resilience. In the context of a water resource system, resilience again can be provided by a plurality of water sources. Okay. The United Nations have recently developed the Sustainable Development Goals. Have a look. There is the link on my web pages. I think it is important that you know them. I will not ask you an exam about the Sustainable Development Goals, but I think it is important that you are aware of what international organizations like the United Nations recognized as key goals to be reached by 2030. And this is the time where you will work, when you will develop your career. So I think it is interesting, so have a look. Keep in mind that this is a parenthesis.